when you think about the fact that very young girls, myself included, I was put on the pill at age 14. So that whole process of ovulation, came to a stop at such a young age, before bone development, before, lots of different developmental factors have happened. You just stop that whole process. The whole process it's done with, so it's really important to know that you're ovulating, know when you're ovulating, whether or not you're trying to prevent, whether or not you're trying to achieve pregnancy, because it is an indicator of your health and a creator of health.
First, let's talk about what fertility awareness is.
All right, fantastic. So fertility awareness, often, the acronym is FAM, F-A-M. So a lot of people, maybe you see FAM popping up somewhere and you're wondering, what is FAM? So FAM is an acronym for Fertility Awareness Method. And what is Fertility Awareness Method? The best and easiest way to describe it is that it is a practice. And as the name implies, fertility awareness, it's an awareness of your fertility signs. So it is a practice. It is something that you do. It is not a thing that you take or inject. It's a practice. It's something that you do. And basically it is an observation, a daily observation of your fertility signs, an interpretation of those signs, and a recording of those signs. So it's kind of like a 3-part thing to it. Okay. So it's like you go to the bathroom every day, multiple times per day, and fertility awareness actually can fit right into your bathroom schedule. Because like I always like to tell my clients, right now, before you start practicing fertility awareness, you're actually flushing data down the toilet. Because most women, when they wipe themselves, they don't pay any attention to the tissue or what's on there. So with the fertility awareness method, you observe your fertility signs, and one of them is cervical mucus, and that can easily be observed on the tissue when you go to the bathroom, when you wipe. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Once you have your observations, once you know how to interpret it and you record it, you can then use that data in a way that benefits your goals. So let's say you're someone who's trying to prevent pregnancy. You can use that data to pinpoint your fertile day, because let's bust a myth here straight away. You are not fertile every day of the cycle. There are certain days of the cycle when you're fertile and certain days when you are absolutely not. Okay, so with fertility awareness, you can accurately pinpoint those fertile days and use that data, that information that your body is giving you to prevent pregnancy or to plan a pregnancy. So it's useful at any stage in your life. The other brilliant thing about fertility awareness is that these very same fertility signs give you indicators of your health. Because as someone with a womb space, the health of your womb, the health and vitality of your fertility is an indicator of your overall health. So it is just, oh gosh, it's just an amazing practice.
Krystal,
because
you
people say
explain
to me,
that
I'm
so
not
well.
trying to prevent, I'm not trying to plan, why is it useful for me? It's useful for you because it can help you pinpoint any potential issues with your health way before it's picked up in blood work, way before you experience symptoms. You will see it in your daily observations. So yeah, that was a long explanation of what
that was so beautiful. Like everything that you're saying, already. I'm just like, yes. And there's so much I want to pull apart there. First of all, I just want to check in for people who are watching. What kind of birth control have you tried? For me, I've been on the pill. I've tried Plan B. Those are the synthetic methods that I tried that totally wreaked havoc on my body. And then, there's 2 things that I just heard you say that were really poignant and amazing that I want to focus on. First is this idea that you can fit it into your schedule. And I think that that's something that is a huge misconception around fertility awareness that keeps people from actually trying it or even just learning about it, is this idea and this myth, right? Oh, it's too complicated. Oh, it takes too much work. Oh, I'm too busy. But as you said, when they're going to the bathroom, they're flushing data down the toilet when they wipe and they don't look at their cervical mucus. So can you talk to that? How can fertility awareness fit into, like for me, I'm a working mom, right? But I do fertility awareness. So how could fertility awareness fit into someone who's really busy schedule?
All right. So what I will say is that at first, when a lot of people hear about it, and you say to them, well, you need to track your fertility signs. And with the specific method that I teach, which is the sympto-hormonal method, that means tracking 3 fertility signs. So not just cervical mucus, but also your LH surge and your basal body temperature. And, you know, sometimes that is a bit off-putting. They're like, whoa, what are you telling me? This sounds like a lot of work. It does sound like a lot of work, and it does sound complicated. But ask any woman who has, you know, been trained in it, who's been practicing it, and they'll tell you it's like riding a bike. It's like a lot of things seem complicated at first, but once you learn, that's the heavy lifting, the learning. And then once you pass that stage and then you start practicing it, it's a daily practice, and it's so easy and it's so simple. So for example, with the cervical mucus, as I said, you go to the bathroom, you wipe yourself from front to back, and you observe what is on the tissue. Okay. Of course, there is a lot of education that needs to be had beforehand so that you're able, because I said it's observation, it's interpretation, and it's recording. So you need to be able to interpret what you're seeing. Because of course, if you go to the bathroom now, you wipe and you're like, well, I don't see anything. Or I see this, it's creamy. Or I see, you need to have the knowledge behind it, how to interpret what you're seeing. But it's super easy. You're going to the bathroom every day, multiple times anyway. That's one thing down, cervical mucus. Then there's basal body temperature tracking, which is taking your temperature every morning upon waking. Okay. This one sometimes takes a bit getting used to, for myself, for a lot of clients, for people that I talk to. But again, it's like riding a bike, you know, it takes 21 days to form a habit. So it becomes a habit. Now I don't even open my eyes. I know exactly where the thermometer is. I just reach for it in the mouth, beep, 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 record it, and it's done. It's a habit. You just need to build it. Like with any healthy habit, if you're trying to make changes in your life, you're trying to work out, people tell you, oh, you should lay out the clothes before you go to bed, so you feel motivated in the morning to go work out. It's a habit. It's a muscle that you need to build. But once you start rolling with it, super easy. And then with the testing of the LH surge or the LH hormone, well, the way that I teach it is that is done at specific days in the cycle. So that is not basal body temperature and cervical mucus is a daily practice, whereas testing for the LH surge is only done during the fertile day. And you learn how to pinpoint that when you need to start testing. So I will say that, yes, I admit it does sound complicated, but really it's not. Really, it's not. Any busy person can fit this into your schedule. If you remember to take that pill every day, I mean, you can remember to take your temperature. You're capable of doing hard things.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
And I think, what's more is it's not just about preventing pregnancy. And this is back on that second point that you mentioned. It's not just about preventing pregnancy, and if people are watching, like right now, I'm celibate. I don't have a partner. So I technically don't have to track my cycle to prevent pregnancy, but it's not just about that. It's about knowing your body. And I always say that the only side effect of fertility awareness method is knowing your body and knowing your cycle. Like that's it. And for those of us who come from a background of synthetic hormonal birth control, it's like, whoa, we're used to side effects, this, right? This really long line. There's a trend on Instagram right now, like women making clothes out of their oral contraceptive side effect sheet. Like that's how long it is, right?
Yeah.
So going back to this point of it being about your health and preventing pregnancy, right? It's like a 1-2 punch. But let's talk about the importance of ovulation and how vital ovulation is to our health and what hormones ovulation provides us and why someone should really care if they're not ovulating regularly.
All right, let's do it. So I want to preface this by saying the fertility awareness method, I think a big misconception comes with it because of the word fertility. So when people hear fertility, they think about conceiving. That's fair enough, okay? You think about someone being fertile, it's the ability to conceive. The way I see the word fertility and the word fertile, equate it to health. Equate your fertility to health. As someone with a womb, if you're healthy, you will be fertile. Okay, you will be able to conceive. So let's go along now with ovulation. It's the same thing. Ovulation is an indicator of and a creator of health. Okay, what does that mean? Ask anyone with PCOS who struggles with ovulating regularly, and they will tell you. They will tell you the multitude of symptoms that they have to deal with. They will tell you about, all of the woes and the stress that come with not ovulating. So maybe we kind of take it for granted. We ovulate and we don't ever have to think about it. So, why is it important? Ovulation is the creator of health, because what happens if you don't ovulate? Okay, first and foremost, if you don't ovulate, you don't create progesterone, which is one of your major sex hormones. So there's estrogen and there's progesterone. You only produce progesterone when you ovulate in
Say it
the
again,
quantities
Krystal.
that is needed. You only produce progesterone when you ovulate. So think about it. If you're on hormonal contraception, the pill, the patch, the IUD, etc., and you're not ovulating, that's something a lot of people actually don't know. You do not ovulate when you're on hormonal contraception. What is that doing to your health? Okay, progesterone is what I like to call your feel-good hormone, your keep calm and chill hormone. I mean, there's so many benefits for your bone health, for your eye health, for your breast health. It's necessary. Okay, so if you don't ovulate, you don't produce progesterone. So that's one big drawback right there. One big drawback. And when you think about the fact that very young girls, myself included, I was put on the pill at age 14. So that whole process of ovulation, came to a stop at such a young age, before bone development, before, lots of different developmental factors have happened. You've just stopped that whole process. The whole process is done with, so it's really important to know that you're ovulating, know when you're ovulating, whether or not you're trying to prevent, whether or not you're trying to achieve pregnancy, because it is an indicator of your health and a creator of health. So we talked about the creator of health part. Let's talk about the implications. If you don't ovulate, it means that certain hormones in your body have not reached the threshold that they need to reach in order for ovulation to happen. So put it simply, at the beginning of the cycle, when your eggs, so just after your period and your eggs start to mature, they produce estrogen. Okay, when estrogen comes to a peak, to its highest level, it produces LH. When LH comes to a peak, you ovulate. If you don't ovulate, it means something has broken down prior, something along the way, something has fallen apart, something's wrong, something's off. Okay, and that means major implications for your health. So you need to know if you're ovulating, when you're ovulating. It's just so important.
It's so important. And I'm so grateful that you named that, because me too, I was put on the pill at age 15. And when I was put on the pill, there's so much fear mongering around, like, oh, if you don't take this, you're definitely going to get pregnant. So of course, as a teenage girl, I'm like, well, I'll take the pill then. But there is no, oh, by the way, this will shut down this natural process in your body. Sure, I knew, like, okay, side effects, mood swings, weight gain, but never was I told, hey, this will shut down this process that creates this hormone that's not just a throwaway hormone. Progesterone is a balancer to estrogen, right? So we see all these issues today as well with estrogen dominance. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, what's the balancer for estrogen? That's progesterone. And we're only creating it when we ovulate. So I'm so grateful that you named that and you explained it so clearly. On that same point, so when we ovulate, we produce fertile mucus. And a lot of people on Instagram think that the only fertile mucus, the only indicator that you're fertile, is when you have that sticky egg white-like mucus. But fertility awareness method says other things. So can you tell us about, what fertile mucus is?
Yes.
Based on your knowledge.
Definitely. So we talked about FAM and fertility awareness method, and I have to say that I speak for the method that I am certified in to train. And that method is the FEM method, and it's a sympto-hormonal method. So there are many different methods of fertility awareness. I think that's also something that people aren't aware of. Like, people will say to me, yes, I'm practicing fertility awareness. And I'll say, what method are you trained in? Is it sympto-hormonal? Is it symptothermal? Is it mucus only? There are many different methods under the umbrella of method. Okay. And with each method, there are rules for determining what is fertile mucus and what isn't. So, for example, there is the Billings method, which is mucus only. I mentioned the symptothermal, which is mucus and temperature, and I teach symptohormonal, which is mucus, basal body temperature, and the LH search, tracking of the LH search. So in the method that I teach, we consider all mucus to be fertile. All mucus is fertile. If you see mucus, you must consider yourself fertile. Here's the caveat to that. There are lots of different types of discharges that you may observe, and every discharge isn't cervical mucus. So the first thing is to determine whether you're seeing cervical mucus or a discharge. Okay? Because all real mucus is fertile. And here's why. So in cervical mucus is produced in the cervix, and the cervix produces cervical mucus in its crypts. Now, the consistency, the color, the texture of the mucus changes under the influence of hormones. So at any given time, depending on which hormone is the most dominant, you will see different types of mucus. So we talked about progesterone that produces one type of mucus, and estrogen produces a different type of mucus. And it is the estrogenic mucus that is the one that will flow out from your cervix, down through your vagina, out through the vulva, and that is what you will be able to observe as you wipe. The mucus that is produced under the influence of estrogen, fertile mucus. For some women, it's creamy. For some women, it's egg white. For some women, it's cloudy. We're not robots, right? So your fertile mucus, I'm sure, doesn't look like my fertile mucus. So again, that's where the education piece is lacking. The education piece is lacking. And this is very misleading, because if you're someone who, you just saw a TikTok or a reel or whatever, and it said that you need to look for that egg white sticky stuff, that's when you're fertile. If you're trying to conceive, it means that you're probably missing a lot of fertile days. And if you're trying to prevent disaster, because you could literally be having intercourse on days when you are fertile, because you're thinking, well, okay, today I saw something, but it wasn't that egg white stuff, so I'm not fertile. Disastrous. Absolutely disastrous. So yes, all mucus is fertile, but not every discharge is mucus.
And that's the benefit of knowing our own bodies, right? Instead of going off of a reel or a TikTok or whatever we see, like getting to know our own body and getting to know the signs that we have. A lot of people might think, oh, okay, I'm having mucus, I'm having like estrogen type mucus, so that must mean that I'm ovulating. But in your method, you track other signs of fertility as well. So could someone just, because I know there's a cervical mucus only tracking method, but what do you think about that? Because for me, I've worked with clients who are still producing estrogen type mucus, but they're not actually ovulating because, as you said, the estrogen isn't rising to that threshold.
Exactly. So I think that's another myth that we need to bust about the egg white mucus. So yes, the egg white mucus, a lot of people think that, okay, when I see this egg white mucus, it means that I'm ovulating. Okay, that may or may not be. We're not saying that's incorrect. That may or may not be. But here's the thing. Ovulation is a 24-hour event. It's not a 6-day event or a 12-day event. It's a 24-hour event. The egg leaves the ovary, busts out it goes into the fallopian tubes, and it can only survive there for 24 hours. That is 1 day of ovulation, okay? However, think about it. If each and every one of us would only be fertile on that 1 day of ovulation, and we would all need to pinpoint that 1 day when that egg leaves the ovary, I think none of us would be here, because nobody would be able to pinpoint that day, and our parents and grandparents would have to be having intercourse every single day. The human race would cease to exist. So Mother Nature in all her wisdom has given us a cervical mucus. So you start producing this fertile cervical mucus in the days leading up to ovulation as well. So this is what we refer to as the fertile window or the ovulatory phase of the cycle. It's a whole phase. It's a whole phase. And it can vary from person to person as well. Again, it depends on when you first see fertile mucus and then when you stop seeing it. So in regards to the methods, I actually, after I had my second child, I stumbled upon fertility awareness by accident. And I was like, where has this been my whole life? Because prior to that, prior to having my first child, I was on the pill. I came off to have her. And then I knew once I gave birth that this pill, it just ain't for me. I'm not going back on this thing. So I quit. And then we were just kind of, using condoms. That was way before, like, I don't want to give away my age, but that was way before, the internet. All these things were like, it wasn't like it is now. And then I started using an app later on. We're going to talk about the apps as well.
Yes, we are.
And I thought that app was the best thing since sliced bread sent to me by God, that I didn't have to take the pill. Okay. But what happened? It worked until it didn't work. Okay. It was an app. I was inputting my start and end date of my period. It was telling me when I was fertile, and I was going off of that. It worked until it didn't work, and I got pregnant. Okay. Pregnancy was a blessing for me, a gift. I was very happy for the pregnancy. But not everyone is in that situation. Okay. So after I had my second daughter, I was like, okay, I need to get serious about this thing. This app ain't it. I'm not going back on the pill. So I need to find a solution. The internet was much better. So I started searching and stumbled across fertility awareness and the book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility. Okay. So I started using that. And the thing is that I thought I was doing it right, but my mucus never fit into the box of what was described in the book, right? So I was like, I don't see this abundant egg white stuff she's talking about. I don't see this thing looking like, my mucus did not fit into the box. And then somehow on Instagram, somebody sent me a post by a fertility awareness educator. At that time, I wasn't one. And I was like, these people exist? What? And then I messaged her straight away, and I was like, I was here with this book and it's like pulling my hair out, and I just want to be confident using this thing because I got pregnant with this app and I don't want it to happen again. And so I started working with an educator, and she helped me to following the rules of the method to work out, what I was seeing, what was fertile, what was a discharge, what wasn't mucus, what was mucus, etc. Okay, so I got trained as a user. That's where I was going with it. As a user, I was trained in the Justice, which is the symptothermal method. So I was charting mucus and temperature. And then a few years down the line, I decided that this is just knowledge that more people need to have. We need more educators. I'm going to become certified to teach this method. And so I decided on FEM because since I already had a background in hormone health, I was a hormone health educator. I love that FEM incorporated education on hormones. So with FEM, we chart cervical mucus, basal body temperature, and then we add on LH, which I mentioned, which is luteinizing hormone surge. So I found that tracking 3 biomarkers gave me the best level of confidence. I know that mucus-only methods are quite effective, but personally, I'm a little bit of a control freak. I'm a little bit paranoid at times. I like having other biomarkers to back up what I'm seeing with my mucus. For me, it's the best of both worlds. For some people, they might find it, oh, that sounds more complicated, having to track more things. That's totally fine. But being the type of person that I am, I like having more than one biomarker that's giving me, because it gives me different types of data about my body. And I really like having that. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes. And thank you so much for sharing. It's so cool to hear the journey of how you came to this work, you know? And I think that I was so surprised on our stories yesterday. I think 35% of people in our community use pull out and pray. and you touch on, you know, which I have too, not gonna lie, I totally have. And you touched on the anxiety, you know, that we can have sometimes. And so a lot of times people might think, oh, fertility awareness, like that sounds like so much work. But how much energy are you spending freaking out every month that you're using pulling out and pray? And, you know, how much energy are you spending like praying that you're not pregnant and like wishing for your period to come, you know, and really hoping that it arrives? That's so much energy too. And so imagine having this set of data that you can look back on and be like, oh, okay, I see the numbers, I see my chart. And so we're going to talk about the apps. We're going to get to that. But I want to speak to how fertility awareness method differs from the rhythm method. Because I come from an Irish Catholic family, and you know, Irish Catholic people do not use condoms. So my mom has 7 brothers and sisters. So, you know, when I first did fertility awareness method, my mom was like, well, that's what my mom used. And look at how many brothers and sisters I had.
Exactly.
But she wasn't using that. She was using the rhythm method. She was looking at the calendar and being like, okay, well, I think I'm probably fertile here on day 13 or 14. And when I see lots of reels on Instagram in the comment section being like, my friend used that and she got pregnant, what they're talking about is the rhythm method. So what's the difference? Because the rhythm method and fertility awareness are not the same. And that's a big myth. Let's bust it right now.
Let's bust it right now. And it irks me. It makes my blood boil. Because it's essentially giving fertility awareness method a bad rap. It's giving it a really bad rap. And that's why whenever someone tells me like I'm practicing fertility awareness or I'm preventing pregnancy naturally, I always ask, what method are you trained in? What method are you using? Because a lot of people think they're practicing fertility awareness, but they're actually not. Each and every fertility awareness method that I mentioned, like mucus only, symptothermal, symptohormonal, each one comes with a set of rules for deciding when you're fertile and when you're not, how to interpret your mucus, when are your safe days, which days aren't safe, right? They come with a set of rules that have been tested for efficacy, right? So when I see people saying to me like, oh, I feel when I ovulate, that's nice. That's nice. That's really nice. But that is not the fertility awareness method. But you asked about the rhythm/calendar method. When you're using one of those apps where you input your start and end date of your period, and then it tells you when you're ovulating or when you're fertile, you are essentially using a calendar rhythm method with an algorithm. That's what it is. Okay, I can call it a modern day rhythm or calendar method, but that's essentially what it is. It's an outdated method. It was brilliant in the times of our great grandmothers, I think, maybe not even our mothers, in the times of our great and great great grandmothers, because it was quite effective then, because women had a lot of regularity in their cycles. Modern day women, I'm sorry to say, we have a lot of irregularities in our cycles, okay? And it makes the cycle very unpredictable. Now, cycles have always been unpredictable. Ovulation can be affected by many factors. And that's why the rhythm/calendar method isn't effective. As you said, it's looking at the days when you have your period. Most women tend to ovulate 14 days before their period. So basically it uses, if you're using an app or if you're doing it yourself on a calendar, you would be looking at past cycle data, right? And trying to predict ovulation in the present cycle. But we cannot predict ovulation. Ovulation is not something that can be predicted. Okay, and that is why the rhythm calendar method is outdated. And when people say, yeah, my mother used that and she had 7 kids, okay, yeah, it is probably true. But don't compare that to my modern day fertility awareness method, because it ain't the same. It's not the same. With fertility awareness methods, you pinpoint on a daily basis if you're fertile or not. Based on what I have seen today, I now decide if I'm fertile today or not. Not based on what happened 2 weeks ago or 3 months ago.
Yes.
No, because my situation, my health, my stress, my everything isn't the same as 3 weeks ago. Okay. And ovulation is very finicky, very, very
Totally.
finicky.
And they're taking the data, right? And they're comparing it to your past cycles, but you're
Yep.
not in the past, you're right
No.
now. And what if, right now you've been fasting? What if right now you're going through a breakup and you're super stressed? What if right now, like, you're having financial issues and again, you're stressed? What if you change your diet? What if you've been traveling, right? As you said, there's all these different factors that can affect our ovulation. So what if you're looking at your app, you're pulling it out of your phone, you're like, oh, my app told me that I'm ovulating today. So then in 3 days, I'm going to be able to have unprotected sex with my partner with a penis and I'll be fine. But because the app can't read your fertile signs, you didn't ovulate then, you were traveling, you ovulated 3 days later. That is how pregnancy can happen with those apps. And I think we're relying so much on them. Like I see so many women, oh, my app tells me I'm going to bleed tomorrow, or, oh, my app tells me I'm going to ovulate. And it's like, what if you lose your phone? Like,
That
really, like we're so
Literally.
reliant on that technology. And so, you know what, let's just, we talked about the apps, but like, let's go into the apps
Let's
here.
go into
Like,
the app.
what do you think about the apps?
My
Are any
nemesis.
apps good? Do you use an app to like put in your data? What do you think about the apps?
Okay, the run-of-the-mill general app where all you input is the start and end date of your period, it ain't it. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Stop. Okay, don't get rid of it, but do not rely on it to tell you when you're fertile and when you're ovulating. Because, okay, tracking the start and end date of your period is important. So if you want to track it in an app, you have to know the strengths, the weakness, the limitations of that particular app. It's great for storing that information, but do not rely on that app to tell you when you're fertile and when you're not, because it doesn't know you. It doesn't know you on that particular day. It's just going on information from your past cycle data. Okay, that's one thing with these apps. Oh, it really annoys me.
I know, me too.
because they're presented as, like it's so easy and it's so accurate, and okay, yeah, it's easy, but it's definitely not accurate. And a lot of the times what happens is you might have quite a few cycles which follow a set pattern, right? So some women say to me, my periods are always coming every, let's say, 28 days. My periods always come every 28 days. Okay. And yeah, in that way, the app will work because you have some regularity in your cycles. But in any given moment, that can change. And as I said with myself, it works until it doesn't work, So do you want to take that risk? Do you want to have a big oopsie? For me, the oopsie wasn't a big deal. As I said, I welcomed the pregnancy with open arms, but not everyone is in the same situation as myself. So yeah, the reliance on the app, that's a big issue, because I know that a lot of women are rejecting hormonal contraception and they're looking for an alternative. And it seems like a really, really good alternative. I just put in the start and end dates of my period. It tells me when I'm fertile, and then I can avoid or use a barrier. I know it seems really great, but too good to be true. Okay.
And as you said, we're not robots, right?
We're not robots.
Yeah.
It can change in any moment.
I love that. And, I am that person. My period comes every 29 days. Like, I'm so grateful. My period has been regular for many years. And last month, I did an Ayurvedic, like, spring rejuvenation cleanse. And my period came 3 days early. And it was like, oh yeah, again, as you said, I'm not a robot. Diet, stress, travel, life changes, financial issues, all of it, seasonal changes as well, can really affect our cycles. So it's about knowing your body rather than relying on this thing that doesn't know your body, that doesn't have the same intelligence that you do. To put that responsibility on an app, like, that's a lot. And so we're outsourcing that responsibility and that sovereignty instead of taking responsibility for our health. And so that's a huge point. And I think, like, just to go back for people who are here and for people who are watching, you can prevent pregnancy without hormonal contraceptives. It works.
It works.
You have to do it every day and show up for yourself. And there's a way to do it because you're not fertile every day. And so I want to go back to that truth. You're not fertile every day. And that, when I learned that, Krystal, that was like earth shattering for me. Like literally like swimming in like, what is life? Because I had based everything on that, right? Like so much taking of the pill for years. I took Plan B. Like I was so afraid to get pregnant every time I had sex, to the point that it took pleasure away from sex for me, because I thought at any time I can get pregnant. And that's not true. And what that means is there are some points in your cycle where you are not fertile. So we talked about estrogen type cervical mucus. Can we talk about progesterone type mucus and what the difference is in that, and when to kind of identify when those safe periods are in your cycle to have unprotected sex?
Definitely. Okay. So from the day of your period up until you ovulate, up until you can confirm ovulation with a proven method. So don't come here telling me that you felt you ovulate. No, that ain't it. Once you can confirm ovulation with a proven method, meaning peak estrogenic mucus, a rise in your basal body temperature, or a positive LH test, okay, +3, then afterward, you can consider yourself no longer fertile. Because once you ovulate, you produce progesterone. We talked about how important progesterone is for your health, for your mental health, for your bodily health, for all of your health generally. But the effect of progesterone on the other hormones is that it suppresses the other hormones, meaning it suppresses estrogen, it suppresses LH, it suppresses follicle stimulating hormone, all of the hormones responsible for ovulation. Okay, so which means that you cannot ovulate twice in a cycle. That's really important. You cannot ovulate twice in one cycle. So once you have confirmed ovulation with a proven method, you know for sure that you've ovulated because you've had a rise in your temperature, you've had peak mucus and it's now dried up, you've had an LH surge, okay? You can consider yourself no longer fertile, because once you ovulate, it's a 24-hour event. It's not a 5-day event. The egg leaves your ovaries for 24 hours. It's viable. If it's not fertilized within that time, that's it. It disintegrates, okay? So 24 hours after you ovulate, technically, you can consider yourself no longer fertile, because that is the effect of progesterone on the other hormones. The effect of progesterone in the cervix is that it dries up the mucus, okay, as well. The mucus becomes very hostile towards sperm. It's very thick. It acts as a barrier in the cervix. You know, like the IUD is meant to be the modern day barrier, but actually your gestogenic, or the mucus produced by progesterone, acts as a barrier to sperm. They cannot survive in there, okay? So even if you have intercourse and the sperm, you know, they make their way up there, they die off, okay? They're like little sperm killers, right?
It's like your own natural spermicide.
Own natural spermicide, okay? So again, once you confirm 24 hours after you have confirmed ovulation, you can consider yourself no longer fertile, and you enter the infertile time of your cycle. There's no egg. You can't get pregnant if there's no egg. So you can consider yourself infertile for the rest of the cycle.